Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Woodstock City Council, October 2nd, 2025. This hybrid meeting is being held in person here in council chambers and electronically in accordance with section 238, subsection 3.3 of the Municipal Act and section 16.6.24 of the City of Woodstock Procedure Bylaw. This meeting is being live streamed to the city's YouTube channel, and a recording will be posted on the city's website following the meeting. An agenda of the meeting can be found on the agendas, meetings, and minutes page of the city's website. And all councilors are in attendance, so no virtual meeting today. We did have a closed session this afternoon. We started slightly earlier. We started at 12:42 this afternoon, and we're done at 1:02. Are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest? Councillor Wismer Van Meer.
This is from the meeting from September 18th, 2025. I, Councillor Liz Wismer Van Meer, declare the following potential indirect pecuniary interest. It was agenda item 9.A, ZN 82509, the application zone change as the applicant is a family dentist.
Thank you. Anyone else? I also declared potential conflict on item 4.3 during close today. Any disclosure of new business? Matters arising from the minutes? And now the minutes. Councillor Leatherborough.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Lauder, that the minutes of the regular meeting of Woodstock City Council held on September 18th, 2025 be adopted.
Thank you. Any questions or concerns with that? Seeing none, all those in favor? That is carried, none opposed. Additions to the agenda. Councillor Leatherborough.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Martin, that the following items be added to the agenda. Item 14G2, temporary discount rate for advertising in What's On Woodstock.
Thank you. Any questions on that? Seeing none, all those in favor? That is carried. No presentations or delegations, but we do have consideration of planning reports. Mr. Gilbert, welcome.
Thank you. This is a request for an extension for a draft approved plan of subdivision. The subdivision plan is located on the south side of Devonshire Avenue, just east of Lansdowne Avenue. This plan was originally draft approved in 2009. Since then, the previous owner registered 5 phases so far. There's a number of phases outstanding. The phases that haven't been registered are outlined in blue on plate 3. The applicants requested a 3-year extension to 2028. Overall, staff have no concern with the extension. It's noted that the lands are currently under court-appointed receivership, so there is a new owner waiting in the wings, but they haven't purchased it yet. So the 3-year time period will give them time to purchase it and then work towards registering the remaining phases. Staff recommends support of the request.
Okay, thank you. Any questions of the planner? Seeing none. I'd also like to note that we do have a guest here today that can answer any questions, an agent for Lunar Group from MHBC, if they have any questions that Ms. Gaudette could answer on this. Seeing none, looking for a motion. Councillor Lauder.
Thank you. I'll move that Woodstock City Council advise Oxford County that the city supports a 3-year extension to the draft approval of the Lunar Group Inc. subdivision 32T08003 for lands described as part of lots 14 and 15, concession 1, Blandford, in the city of Woodstock to October 31st, 2028, as set out in the report number CP 2025-285.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Counselor Schadenberg? Discussion or questions? Seeing none? I'd just like to say I'm excited to see vacant land being developed. With that, all those in favor? None opposed. That is carried. No consideration of correspondence this afternoon, but we do have presentations from staff, and I'd like to welcome Megan House to the podium. Welcome. Thanks for being here.
Okay. Good afternoon, Mayor and members of council. We've included a package of information in your agenda today that summarizes draft findings of the study to update the county's growth forecasts and settlement area land needs. The current growth forecast and land needs assessment was adopted by County Council in 2020. And since the last study, significant growth has occurred in the county. So this warrants updates to the growth forecasts and the assessment of the amount of land needed to accommodate that growth. The county initiated the current study in 2024, and it's being undertaken by Watson and Associates economists. County Council received the draft population, household, and employment growth forecasts in November 2024 and authorized planning staff to undertake the remainder of the project based on these findings or these forecasts. County Council report was circulated to area municipal councils at that time. We are now consulting on the draft land needs assessment, and Jamie Cook from Watson Associates is joining us virtually to present these findings. The findings presented today are draft, and we're seeking feedback from council. We have been meeting with various groups and will make presentations to all area municipal councils through September and October, aiming to take the remainder of, or the final findings to County Council in November for their consideration. So through the mayor, I will now ask Jamie to start his presentation.
Thank you. Welcome, Jimmy.
Thank you. Thanks, Megan. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. Good afternoon, Mayor and members of council. It's a pleasure to be able to speak to you today to present you the draft findings of our growth analysis and land needs study. We're going to hop right into it. On the first slide, I just wanted to provide a bit of an overview of the study and introduce the study. So we were retained back in late 2023 to update the work that was carried out back in 2020 as part of the county municipal comprehensive review. And essentially this work is being initiated because there's been a lot of changes to the growth outlook for, excuse me, if you can go forward, Brad, to the next slide. There has been accelerated growth pressures within the county and Woodstock since that time of the last update. Just not seeing the slides advancing. Are they advancing on your end?
They are not.
I think the city was running the slide deck, but I
Oh.
can do it if needed.
Okay. If you go to the next slide.
Oh, it just changed.
There we go. Thank you very much. So as I mentioned, there's been accelerated growth pressures within the county and Woodstock since the last update. So that really necessitated the change and the necessity to update this work. We've also seen significant changes to provincial policy that are also being looked at as part of this review. So as part of this study, we have conducted a long-term growth outlook for the County of Oxford, and we've prepared growth allocations by each of the area municipalities, by urban and rural area where appropriate, and by planning policy area. We've also prepared an intensification analysis working with Dillon Consulting to identify short-term opportunities for residential intensification. And then from there, we've prepared a long-term land use assessment extending out over a 20 to 30-year period. And then from that, we've also prepared a number of strategic recommendations to guide the county's official plan review. So on the next slide, I just wanted to point out a few aspects of the provincial planning context that we're working within. So the provincial planning statement was updated last October. This document essentially provides the directions for land use planning in Ontario under the Planning Act. And through this update, what the province has done is they've taken the 2020 provincial policy statement and the growth plan for the Greater Golden Horseshoe, and they've integrated into one consolidated document. The intention of this document is to provide an updated guide for land use planning in a manner that's less prescriptive and more outcome-based, and ultimately geared to provide the objective of providing more housing opportunities within Ontario over the long term. There's a couple of key things I wanted to point out in this document related to this study. The first is that the PPS identifies that when we're doing a study like this, we're to look at the Ministry of Finance projections that are produced annually, and we're to update accordingly in accordance with those Ministry of Finance projections. So we have taken a look at those projections, and we have conformed to that requirement. In terms of the land requirements or the ability to designate lands in the official plans, the PPS says that we can look out over a 20 to 30-year period for residential and what we would call community area lands, so mixed use residential, retail, institutional lands. So we can provide projections over a longer term period, but we can only designate in official plans for urban use for a community area over a 30-year period. It does allow us to go out longer for employment areas. We can look out for industrial type development over a longer term period if there's a necessity to do so. The province also released a proposed provincial methodology guideline. So essentially an additional document to help provide direction on how to conduct growth analysis studies and urban land use studies. That's an update from a study that was prepared back in 1995. So it's been quite a while since we've seen this kind of guidance provincially at this level from the province, and that document is currently under review. We don't see any major changes to it that would affect the way we've assessed the analysis in our report, and we have looked at that draft document and commented on how we do feel we meet the requirements of that guidance document. And then ultimately, this work will then be used to guide the official plan for Oxford County with respect to growth management issues. So if we could jump into slide 5, which is a summary of some of the key trends on migration. I wanted to just speak to those trends. So next slide, and then the next slide. Thank you. So so it's slide 5. Thank you. So when we were talking about what's driving population growth in Oxford County and Woodstock, it's really all about net migration. And within the concept of net migration, it's really all about intra-provincial net migration. So that's really the story of what's driving population growth in Oxford and Woodstock. So this graph you can see on the left identifies the type of net migration that Oxford's been experiencing over the last 25 years. And in the dark blue, you can see the summary of intra-provincial migration. So that's migration from other parts of Ontario and how much is coming to Oxford County. And you can see that number has been steadily coming up over the last 8 years or so, specifically into the 2016 to 21 and the post-21 period. A significant amount of that net migration from other parts of Ontario has been coming from the Greater Golden Horseshoe, and particularly the west side of the Greater Golden Horseshoe. So areas like Waterloo, Brant County, Haldeman, Norfolk, for example, they've been making up close to 50% of that migration demand or coming into Oxford County. And then we've also seen migration coming from some other parts of the GTA, as well as the London Middlesex area. So the point of all this is to just identify that Oxford County is located directly west of one of the fastest growing areas in Ontario, being the Greater Golden Horseshoe. That west side of the GGH is the fastest growing subregion of that area. And so that's putting a lot of pressure on Oxford County and other areas in the surrounding area, particularly along that 401 corridor and 403 corridor for growth. You can also see in the light blue that international migration has also been coming up, but it's been a relatively more minor component of the overall net migration story. Next slide, please. So there's a couple more points I just wanted to build on with respect to that overall story of what's driving population growth to Oxford and Woodstock. And so we mentioned this issue of outward growth pressure, and I just really wanted to just focus on 4 of the hexagons in this illustration, starting with the local industrial and regional economic opportunities. And so net migration to this area has largely been driven and dominated by working age adults that have been driving the regional economy in the GGH and the West GGH and the London Economic Region over the past 10 years. So we've seen a steady rebound in regional economic growth that's been driving that activity. And we expect to continue to see regional economic activity that will support future net migration, particularly in working age adults and families over the future. Moving up on this schematic, the strategic location of Woodstock and the county as a whole is important to look at, because when we look at where areas are growing at a faster rate in southern Ontario, it's typically municipalities that are directly located along a major 400 series highway. And as we move further away from those larger highways, we typically see the growth rate starting to fall. So that Oxford Middlesex corridor has become a very fast, high growth rate for southern Ontario. As a result, we're seeing population growth across all major age groups. That's a good sign. It's putting upward pressure on or potential for labor force activity. It's helping to mitigate the aging of the population and also creating population growth through natural increase. So births, less deaths. Technological change is the last thing I wanted to mention. As we saw through COVID, we saw accelerated shifts towards more hybrid work and remote work opportunities. And that's putting additional opportunities for local residents to work both within the regional economy as well as to access larger employment markets within the GTA and elsewhere in the GGH, which provides, again, further opportunities for those that are living in the Oxford area. So those are really the four key factors that are really driving this higher rate of growth that we're seeing in Oxford relative to the province as a whole. So on slide 7, the next slide, I want to just provide a summary of that forecast. So this is a summary of the long-term forecast for Oxford County. So we've based this forecast on the Ministry of Finance projections that go to 2051, and we've extended it out another 10 years to ensure that we have a full 30-plus year period to project and to work through our analysis with respect to the long-term land use assessment. And so this forecast identifies a population growth rate of about 1.4% annually. That's relatively higher than the provincial growth rate as a whole, which is about 1.1%. And that has Oxford County reaching a population of about 223,600 people by 2061. So that's an increase of about 97,000 people over that time period. So it's a significant amount of population growth. On the next slide, we've provided a summary of the employment forecast. The Ministry of Finance doesn't prepare an employment forecast, so this has been prepared solely by Watson and Associates. The overall long-term outlook for employment is similar. A growth rate of 1.4% has been identified, which is a strong future population growth rate for the county. We've identified an increase of about just under 44,000 jobs. About 40% of these jobs would be coming from sectors that are related to population growth. So sectors like retail, education, healthcare, personal services, for example. But another 40% has also been identified in the industrial sectors, sectors like advanced manufacturing, logistics, warehousing, construction, utilities, for example. And then lastly, about 20% is also identified in work at home and offsite work categories. Next slide. So then this next few slides addresses the allocation of population employment growth to Woodstock over that long-term period. And as you can see here, we've identified a significant amount of growth going to Woodstock. From a demand perspective, we've identified about 43% of the overall population potential for Oxford County would be occurring within Woodstock. And so over time, this would represent we would experience a slight increase in the share of growth going to Woodstock, or the share of population, I should say, in Woodstock, going back historically to 2061, but a relatively consistent sort of share, not too much higher. On the employment, we've also identified a significant percentage at 52% of the overall countywide employment going to Woodstock. And similarly, Woodstock's share of employment within the county in terms of its total employment stock or base would be also slightly increasing. Next slide. So on the next slide, we've identified what the overall population forecast is for Woodstock specifically. And you can see here we've identified a population forecast of just over 90,000 people by 2061. That represents a total annual increase of about 1.6%. So that's well above that provincial average and higher than the Oxford overall total growth rate. It's an increase of about just under 42,000 persons. On the next slide, we've identified the amount of housing growth that we've identified for Woodstock to accommodate this population. We have, you can see here on the bar chart, we've identified an increase relative to historical trends. That this overall forecast works out to about just under 460 average households a year. That's about a 42% increase from what we've experienced in the 2011 to 2021 census period, which was a steady growth period for Woodstock. So it's a significant amount of housing that we've identified to accommodate this population. We are expecting to see a shift in the demand for housing by type, with more demand coming in the form of medium and high density households, largely as a result of demographic trends, specifically the aging of the population, as well as housing affordability trends. Next slide. So similarly to the county-wide work, we've prepared an employment forecast looking out to 2061. We've identified an overall employment forecast of 52,000 by 2061. That represents an increase of just under 23,000 jobs over that time period. That's a growth rate of about 1.6%, which is fairly consistent with what we've been experiencing historically, and also again would generate a slightly higher share of employment going to Woodstock over the long term. So moving on into the land needs assessment, if we could go to the next slide. So this slide provides a bit of a breakdown of the community structure for preparing a land needs study. So in the case of Woodstock, we've broken the overall growth down into two buckets. So we have the community areas, which are essentially where people live. So that's residential areas, as well as commercial and institutional areas like retail and schools, for example. And then we have where people work. So this is employment areas, and these are generally industrial type uses that accommodate manufacturing and other industrial uses. The community areas have been broken down into two categories or two policy areas. The first is the built up area. This is generally the area that has been identified as being built as of 2006, and is generally areas that are either developed or developing as of today. The greenfield area represents areas that are inside the urban area, but are vacant now and have the potential to accommodate additional residential developments. And then within the built-up area, we've also worked with Dylan to identify opportunities within those in corridors, as well as the remaining built-up area. So on the next slide, the breakdown of that residential forecast that we've identified is 25% of the growth being identified in intensification areas. That does represent an increase to the current intensification target of 15% within Woodstock. That's 117 units a year identified in the built-up area. And then the greenfield area is to plan to accommodate the remaining 75% of housing growth, which works out to about 350 units annually. With respect to the employment on the next slide, the employment's broken down into two categories. Again, community areas, about 62% of the employment being in these community areas to accommodate retail and population-related employment, as well as the other 38% being identified in employment areas. So again, lands that accommodate industrial type uses. Next slide. So the next few slides provides an overview of the land needs assessment. So when we compare our overall supply of lands that are available for development within the greenfield area and compare that to the demand forecast, that does identify a potential shortfall of lands that are designated for urban development for community area use in Woodstock, ranging from about 251 hectares to about 452 hectares. If you prefer acres, that 30-year period works out to about 1,117 acres of additional land that would be required to be considered to accommodate future urban development. Next slide. So we also looked at this with respect to employment areas. And again, we compared the available supply of employment lands to the demand for employment land development. And we've identified an overall forecast of range of 87 to 255 hectares of additional land for employment. On the next slide, we've just put those two numbers together to give you the total amount of gross developable additional urban lands that are required to accommodate that growth forecast out over a 20 to 30 year period. And that would range from 338 hectares to 707 hectares in total. Next slide. So in terms of next steps, if we could go to the final slide, we've been working with the county and local area municipal staff for some time now over the last year and a half or so. We met with a number of the area municipalities on several occasions through our TAC committee. We also met with interested parties, largely the members of the development community, back in August of this year. And now we're going through another period of consultation with all the local area municipalities. The county is currently reviewing our draft report, and we're looking to then go back to county council sometime later this month or in November. And that concludes my presentation. I'm happy to take any questions that you might have.
Thank you, Mr. Cook. Any questions of council? Councillor Schanberg.
Yeah, question from the mayor through to our delegation. When you talk about intensification, does that include additional residential units, being one unit sort of inside an existing home, as far as creating a unit for intensification?
Through the mayor, yes, that is a good question. And the answer is yes. We have identified ARUs through that intensification analysis, and they have been embedded in our forecast for growth within the built-up area. We have, for the purposes of our work, we identify them in the high-density category because they tend to reflect an occupancy or a persons per unit, similar to a high-density unit, typically a small high-density unit. But it's also important to recognize that from a planning perspective, they are being occupied typically in grade-related housing types. So that distinction is always important to be made.
And I guess as a bit of a follow-up, but kind of unrelated, Woodstock, like all municipalities, has approved plans of whether they be a 13-story apartment building or townhouse condos and stuff like that. We've approved them, but they don't yet exist, right? So is some of that, was that some of that looked at in your study? Did you ask questions about when's this going to happen, or when's that going to happen, or that's good news for the city as far as that project goes, or anything along those lines?
Through the mayor, yes, another good question. We have looked at that in detail. So as part of this work, we looked at what we would call the development approvals process and looked at all stages of planning approval. And so when we do that, we look at units that are registered and unbuilt in approved plans. We also look at draft approved plans and other plans that are pending approval. We look at the amount of yield that we would anticipate, the type of development, and the timing of development.
I guess a third question then, when you start looking at numbers of subdivisions that could be possibly happening in the future, and you mentioned 251 acres, or 251 hectares, would therefore you be somebody that would think, by looking at the city of Woodstock boundary lines, that the city of Woodstock sometime within the next 10 years anyway should be looking at some sort of boundary adjustment for residential purposes, or does your analysis not go that far?
Through the mayor, so our analysis does not go as far as to identify the exact timing or looking at location options or approaches for urban expansion at this point. The main point of this study is really to look at the growth forecast and then the quantum of land, the amount of land. But I would say that it generally takes on average about a period of about 10 to 15 years to go from this study that we're doing now to actually seeing an occupied unit, on the ground. So it does take quite a bit of time to work through that approvals process. And this is why we look out so far, why we look out typically over a 20 to 30 year period. And so because of that, I would suggest that that it would be appropriate for the city to start to, consider this, the results of this study, in a timely manner. But I haven't specifically identified the specific timing. We could provide a little more detail on that in the report to help the city and council. But as I pointed out, it's always important to work proactively because the runway is quite long in terms of all those steps that need to take place before you get to this point to seeing actual housing occupied.
If I can follow up with some questions pertaining to Councillor Schattenberg, Mr. Cook. Looking at the data you've given us, if you're forecasting 90,000 people, over 90,000 people here by 2061, and yet the acres, so we're virtually doubling in the next 40 years, I think it becomes obvious we can't double within our current boundary. I mean, that's pretty easy to simple math here. In discussions with current developers, some have expressed their concern about how the numbers provided in this report are quite low. That it's quite optimistic. I'm just curious. You did mention there is some speaking with the development community. But was that their general consensus that there was going to need a fair bit more land than in total 700 hectares, developable hectares?
Thank you, Mayor. So when we spoke to the development community, I don't believe we've heard anything specifically that they've identified our number being too low for Woodstock, although I'm still in a process of working with the county to make sure that we've received all the feedback and had a chance to review all those comments that we received, any comments that we've received following our verbal responses that we received during our consultation with them. I would just offer a few points that on that. So one is that the overall projections are derived and are aligned with the Ministry of Finance projections as of 2024. Those numbers are starting to come down a little bit in 2025 because the federal government has started to reduce their immigration targets nationally. So they're coming down a little bit, but not much. In Oxford, they're holding pretty strong in Oxford even in 2025 because of that pressure that I mentioned. But overall, I don't think there's likely any real dispute for like a major variance looking at the overall long-term outlook for the county at this point. Where there could be differences is the allocations, but as I've mentioned, we've identified, I think, an appropriate allocation for Woodstock from a demand perspective, recognizing that yes, you are going to likely have to look at options for corporate boundary expansion, into the future. The only other major area that we often would get into a dispute with the private sector or a developer or their consultants would be on some of these assumptions related to the mix of housing or the density of housing. And so if you shift that mix of housing to more grade related options like low density and you lower the density, then that's going to have an upward impact on the overall need for land. And it's not uncommon that we have disputes with the development industry about that quantum. So when we do a study like this, we are looking at this from the lens of what we think is appropriate from a market standpoint, but we're also looking into the future about where we think the market's heading, 40 years from now. Clearly, it's not easy to project that far out, and we recognize that there is uncertainty when we do that, but we do feel that there is good reason to suggest that the mix will continue to shift towards more medium and high. We also think there's good reason to suggest that densities will gradually come up relative to where they are today. And as a result of that, then we make our assumptions on those densities and that land requirement. So the other final point I would make is that we are looking at over a long-term period, 30 years, and these official plan reviews, these full updates are done usually at a 10-year cycle. Sometimes we do updates every 5 years. So there will be additional opportunities to again look at this again, over the next 10 years and within the horizon of this analysis at least 3 times. And so I think from my perspective, what we've laid out here is an appropriate amount of growth, and it's an appropriate level of land demand associated with that growth.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Councillor Lauder?
Through the mayor to the presenter. So for future planning in the city, is it better to, if we try to accumulate these lands in one parcel at one time instead of breaking it up so many acres or hectares and in smaller quantities every 10 years?
Through the mayor, it's a really good question, and I think the answer to that is that further work needs to be done to really assess that. But I would say that generally I would say there's a critical mass that of essentially the size of an area that you probably should be looking at to consider what would be a critical size or a minimal size to provide a complete community, to provide a feasible outcome, not only from the developer's perspective, but also from the municipality's perspective in terms of the fiscal impacts that, such a large undertaking like this would take. These are huge undertakings that we're talking about. And so having some, consolidation of land definitely makes sense. But it may not be possible to have a consolidation of land all in one area for various reasons. And there's also going to be areas that may be fragmented from the natural heritage system, for example, that would create some gaps between a contiguous area of land. But that would be something that we would want to be looking at through further analysis, and there'd be criteria to help evaluate that. And that's typically a study that would be done as a subsequent study to this that would look at location options for growth. It would look at phasing strategies, servicing, and those financial implications.
Thank you.
I guess I got a question along those same lines then as Councillor Lauder. In your professional opinion, how long would it take from again, looking at 2036, you've forecasted population to be 66,000 people here in the city of Woodstock. So I'm just going back to slide 11. So looking at that, recognizing we're in and around 50,000 people right now. We've already recognized approximately 3,000 residences, give or take, already kind of in the plan. We're at our boundaries now. So we're talking 13,000 people. How long do you forecast we would need land then to supply the estimated, or the forecasted land? Do you think that would be 5 years to get it on board? It's 10 years to get it on board? Because if that's the case, we really got to look at this immediately. Because we all know land takes a very long time to develop and bring it on board to be able to be buildable, assuming your numbers are accurate here.
Yeah, yes. So to respond to that, I would say I haven't actually calculated a precise timing of build out for each of the area municipalities, but that's something that I can do for you. I'm not sure if that was really your question. Your question may have been more, how much time do you need to prepare for this, to implement the results of the study? And I would say that, going back to my previous comment, that, typically from my experience, it takes quite a long time. You've got the planning approvals work, or you got the study work that we're doing now. And then you've got more planning approvals work that would be needed to answer the other councilors' questions about more detailed analysis of location options and impacts. You've got servicing studies. Then you've got, then you get into marketing and sales, and then construction and occupancy. And so these things take years. And in this case, if you're looking at a corporate boundary expansion, you have all the additional added complexities of negotiations and discussions with surrounding municipalities. And so this is something that takes a long time. And I would say that in my experience, I've never experienced anything like this happening faster than a 10-year period.
So I guess, would you consider it critical to get going on this now versus waiting for a question?
Yes, I would say it's important for you to start thinking about this now. Yes.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Schadenberg.
Yeah, question from the mayor through to Mr. Cook. I guess my best question is have you started with the city of Woodstock as far as going from the municipalities and then the townships and into the county with your report? Are you starting with us, or for example, have you already talked to East or Tavistock's council?
Through the mayor, we've actually already spoken to a number of the townships throughout the past couple weeks, and we're now finishing up that discussion next week and in the following week. So we're a little over, I think, halfway through our consultation with the area municipalities.
Yeah. Anyone else? Seeing none? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Looking for a motion? Councillor Tate?
I'll move that Woodstock City Council receive the presentation from Watson and Associates regarding updates to the county growth forecast and land needs analysis as information.
Thank you. Second by Councillor Martin. Discussion? Councillor Tate? Or questions?
Just some comments through the chair. I think the questions on boundary adjustment issues is a governance issue. It's not for the, for this report that's come forward. So when I look at this, I'm glad that the comment was, we're gonna look at this 3 more times in the next 10 years, because I think we'll find that there'll be some huge changes in housing and the economy. So looking right now, the housing has basically stopped everywhere. Toronto last month sold 100 homes, normally 1,000. So foreclosures are up 90%. So I think there'll be a huge change going forward. So I'm glad to see this, that it will be looked at it will be looked up in the next 10 years. And the comments also that was made about it's a huge fiscal impact on a municipality when you do a boundary adjustment. As I've always said, I'm not in favor of them. We are surrounded by great farmland, and the cost of housing does not pay its way. And it turns out it's costing our taxpayers high taxes, and we're in a high tax area already. So I'm looking forward to see what it comes back in the following years. Appreciate the work, but I think it's going to look a lot different. And if we don't have the land in Woodstock, well, then they'll go somewhere else and people still be housed. But immigration numbers are way down. And as we see from the economy, all the economists are predicting we're going into a very big downturn. So I think there's a lot of moving pieces, and right now it's going to change. What we see right now is going to be completely different, maybe from 2 or 3 years from now. So just my comments.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Martin?
Thank you, Mayor Accioni. I agree with so much of what Councillor Tate said. This is a forecast that is being presented to us, and it is largely up to us on how we throttle this growth. To suggest that our path forward is 90,000 people in the city of Woodstock by 2061 is a forecast. It is not a Bible. It is not a direction. It is not, provincially mandated. Growth in the city is up to us. If we don't want 90,000 people in the city of Woodstock by 2061, then that we can have a large amount of control over that. As Councillor Tate just said, if they don't come to Woodstock, they will go somewhere else. New people to Southern Ontario have a wide range of communities to choose from, and it doesn't have to be us. Population growth of this magnitude has an enormous economic cost, social cost, and a community cost. When you think of doubling our population in this timeline, that's another arena, another pool, another library, 2 more fire stations, another police station, like extreme capital costs let alone the social costs and the community costs of swallowing up agricultural land that is the premium land in this province. So again, it's a forecast. It is not a directive, and I would advise us to take it as such.
Thank you. Anyone else? Well, just say, I really did appreciate the report. I see, Mr. Cook, you're still online. So thank you for the information. It was kind of eye-opening to see some of these numbers and the reality of if we trended the way we are right now, where we would be by 2061. And I do share a lot of concerns. I'm not sure I want to see 90,000 people here in the city of Woodstock, even myself. But saying that, we're also got to be realistic on the pressures and the expenses of supply and demand here in the city. If we don't keep expanding, then prices are just going to skyrocket even more the way we've seen it in the last few years because of the pressures. So I think there's a fine line there, and councils, this council and future councils will have those tough decisions ahead of them to see where the future is going to go. But in the meantime, it's good to see this and the reality of recognizing we're out of land here in the city of Woodstock, and either we do something about it or we don't, with cooperation from our neighbors, because that's what it's all about. So, anyone else? No, Councillor Lauder?
So, going forward, I don't want to see 90 million or 90,000 people, 90 million, 90,000 people here either, but I'm just thinking, the reason I asked the question, is it better to go big or stay home? And because of actually where I'm living, out in Sally Creek, we have no commercial area there. I mean, it's little stamps of land. And so I don't know who did the planning on that or anything else, and I don't blame anyone, but I'm just saying there's no room for commercial. So I'm just thinking of going forward and making sure that we do have places for schools, fire hall, police, and I know it all costs money, but I'm just thinking of that as opposed to saying, I want to see that. So that's why I asked the question.
Thank you. Anyone else? Seeing none, I'll just call for a vote. All those in favor? That is carried. Again, all we did for those watching at home was just take this information, or as information, no movement on this. There is no mayor's report today or councillor reports, but we do have some department reports. Nothing from admin, engineering, but we do have cultural services, 14C1, purchase of DCI projector. Councillor Schadenberg.
Yeah, motion that Woodstock City Council waive the tendering requirements of Municipal Code Chapter 376, procurement of goods and services, and authorized the purchase of a DCI projector and 20-foot screen with labor in the amount of $135,105.88 plus HST from Hamilton Video and Sound Limited.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Wismer Van Meer. Discussion or questions? Councillor Schadenberg.
Just want to mention that Karen Houston is here from Cultural Services, the curator of the Woodstock Museum. Maybe she can discuss a little bit about the, I guess, what we could see down the line as far as the Toronto International Film Festival type movies that were airing in Woodstock well before COVID. In fact, there was a great series of pictures that were being brought to Woodstock, and why the Market Theater is the new destination for it.
Your worship, to the question. Yes, so the Market Center Theater already has the lovely seating, it already has the sound, but what we needed was a larger screen and we needed a better projector. So when we got into this, this came to capital budget for this year. And as we got into it, we realized that this was more and more complicated, not just because of the technical requirements but we're repurposing an old building. And so things aren't always where you would need them in an actual, say, movie theater. So for instance, in a movie theater, your projection is often quite a bit higher than what we can do in the Market Center Theater because it was not built to be a theater originally. We also have a third-party agreement with the Woodstock Little Theater themselves, or Theater Woodstock. And so where the ideal place to maybe have our projector, they already have one of theirs. So we have to get creative. So that's taken some time and some meetings and lots of talks, but we've gotten to the point where the little theater, or Theater Woodstock, pardon me, and IT staff and myself, we all think that we can come together and work on this together. And that has involved lots of meetings and chats, but we think we're there. So what this will mean is that we will start the process this fall. It probably won't finish until next time, unfortunately, January or February. But the idea is that next spring, that yes, we will be starting the series. So you will see when we come to capital budget, or pardon me, operation budget, that there will be lines in both the art gallery and the market theater budget as well that has to do with this series. So yes, we have already let TIFF know that we are wanting to come back. We already have our membership. Everything is a go there. So that's what's happening.
Thank you. Questions? Councillor Leatherborough.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Ms. Houston, thank you very much for this. I didn't realize there was so many moving parts. And it's no secret that See You at the Movies is one of my favorite community outlets. So my question was going to be, when can we see it up and running? And it looks like spring 2026. But yeah, thank you very much for the work that everyone has put in to see this come back to our community.
Your worship, I'd just like to say, I think that there's a lot of very happy people that we've got to this place. So thank you.
I agree. I'm excited to see it myself. Anyone else? Seeing none, thank you very much. No further questions or comments? I'll call the vote. All those in favor? None opposed. That is carried. Welcome to the movies. Let's see. From Parks and Recreation, of course, we have 14D1 Cowapalooza budget. Councillor Leatherborough.
Moved by myself that Woodstock City Council pre-approve the 2026 Cowapalooza expenditure budget of $155,000 for 2026.
Thank you. Is there a seconder on that? Councillor Tate, discussion or questions? I guess I'll just quickly ask because she's in attendance. We can't share who's planned for next year yet, can we? No, I'm getting the nod and saying no. No further questions, comments? I'll call a vote. All those in favor? None opposed. That is carried. Next up, Economic Development, 14E1, Parking Payment in lieu of. Looking for a motion? Councillor Leatherborough?
Moved by myself that Woodstock City Council approve an amendment to Municipal Code Chapter 504 to implement a cash in lieu per parking space to be set at $10 for up to 10 parking spaces required by the City of Woodstock zoning bylaw in residential development proposals within the area defined in Schedule D of this chapter, commencing October 6, 2025 and ending April 6, 2026, and further that the amending bylaw be referred to the bylaw section of the agenda.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Wismer Van Meer. Discussion or questions? Councillor Leatherborough.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I was going to volley this to Mr. Hammond because I, for one, appreciate when he speaks to his reports. But it's my understanding I can volley it to the CAO just to give a general overview, or maybe back to Mr. Hammond, of just what this report means and how it could benefit the downtown.
Looks like I drew the short straw. So a bit of a complicated topic, but I'll do my best to do it justice. So parking in the downtown is kind of a very complicated matter in that commercial enterprises in the downtown are exempt from providing their own parking when they develop in the downtown. This is largely because the city is a parking provider. So we have on-street parking, we have municipal lots that kind of provide that that commercial parking need. However, hotels and residential developments are not exempt from providing their own parking. But again, it's not quite as simple as that. If you're within an area of the downtown, and you need less than 10 parking spaces, again, you're exempt from having to provide those 10 parking spaces. However, if you're one parking space over in terms of your demand, now you have to provide 11 parking spaces. So the mechanism that's in the municipal code right now is if people are unable to provide the parking that they need, they can provide a cash in lieu or a payment in lieu rather of parking spaces. The current setup for this is fairly expensive, in the neighborhood of $20,000 per space. And the calculation to get there is quite complicated. In fact, we haven't used that calculation in quite some time, and the parking in lieu or payment in lieu rather hasn't been used in quite some time. So the motion before council this afternoon is really to provide a 6-month period where we will flat rate the payment in lieu for parking spaces down to a nominal level. I think it's an application fee of $100 and then $10 per spot for up to 10 spots. And the purpose for this is there's a number of developments that will be coming into the development phase of their project and looking to access the cash in lieu of payment. So we're hoping to buy 6 months' time to encourage these developments to move forward, so that we're not a roadblock to their developments while we kind of take a step back and look at our zoning bylaw and what we can do as the city to kind of incentivize further residential development in the downtown. It's identified as a priority in our strategic plan for the city. And frankly, it's the way to incentivize the downtown. The more people living in and around the downtown, the more vibrant the downtown will become, and it will be good for all. So that's high-level overview. If you need any of the real nitty-gritty details about how that calculation's done or something like that, I'll defer to Mr. Creary. But high level, we're just looking to buy 6 months' time at minimum to allow the planning department to kind of address this and kind of look at a more workable solution for those looking to develop residential development in the downtown.
Thank you for that. Yeah, I think that was well said. I couldn't agree more. Incentivize and make it happen. I want to thank staff actually for coming forward with this and looking at it. Anyone else? Seeing none, I'll call the vote. All those in favor? None opposed. That is carried. From the Clerk's Department, 14F1 2025 Records Retention Schedule Update. Looking for a motion? Councillor Martin?
Thank you, Mayor Accioni. That Woodstock City Council refer the 2025 Records Retention Schedule Update to the bylaw section of the agenda.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Lauder? Discussion or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? None opposed. That is carried. Next is 14F.2, Citizen Appointment to the Woodstock Accessibility Advisory Committee for the end of the term. Councillor Wismer Van Meer.
I move that Woodstock City Council appoint Eliza McClellan and Kirsten Ouellette to the Accessibility Advisory Committee for a term from October 2nd, 2025 to November 14th, 2026.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder on those? Councillor Schattenberg, discussion or questions? Well, I'd simply like to say thank you to all those that apply. As we've found over the years, we have far more interest in helping than we could ever accept. And I thank people for that. Please keep applying, keep wanting to contribute. And hopefully you will certainly get your turn. Councillor Schattenberg.
Just want to add to what the mayor just said, and the fact that there's a 13-month appointment because of the fact that all advisory committees, whether you've been on a committee for 35 years or 3 months, all advisory committees dissolve at the time of next year's municipal election, and people can reapply.
Thank you for mentioning that. Absolutely. Yep. Anyone else? All those in favor? None opposed. That is carried. And now we're talking council meetings. 14F.3 is 2026 regular council meeting schedule. Looking for a motion. Counselor Martin?
Thank you, Mayor Accioni. That the Woodstock City Council meeting dates for the months of July, August, and December 2026 and January 2027 be scheduled for 7 p.m. on the following dates: Thursday, July 9th, 2026, Thursday, August 13th, 2026, Thursday, December 10th, 2026, and Thursday, January 14th. 2027, and further that the Committee of Adjustment meeting and the planning meeting scheduled for Monday, November 15th, 2026 be rescheduled to Tuesday, November 16th, 2026 due to the 2022-2026 term of council inaugural meeting.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Counselor Tate? Discussion or questions? Seeing none, call a vote. All those in favor? None opposed? That is carried. From the CAO's office, 14G1 Norwich Boundary Adjustment Final Approval. Counselor Lauder.
Thank you. I'll move that the necessary bylaw be read in order to authorize the mayor and clerk to execute the boundary adjustment agreement between the Corporation of the City of Woodstock, the Corporation of the Township of Norwich, and Oxford County.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Counselor Leatherborough? Discussions or questions? Counselor Martin?
Thank you. I've been quite outspoken about the preservation of agricultural land, and that is near and dear to my heart. So until there is a mechanism across the province to mitigate the loss of agricultural land and that yield that it produces for us, I'm not in favor of boundary adjustments. I know a lot of work has gone into this. I know it's going to happen anyway. But at the core, I believe that we need to be coming up with a mechanism to preserve agricultural land, but when we can't preserve agricultural land, to support agriculture to adopt other forms of food production so that we don't put ourselves into a food insecure situation one day.
Thank you. Anyone else? Counselor Tate?
Through the chair, I think with this one in particular that the CAO should comment on what this actually is, because we're not taking agricultural land for this. This is for a road just for the public's benefit, if somebody wants to speak to it. I don't want people confused what we're doing.
You okay to talk?
I'll try. You won't ask me to talk again. Thank you, Your Worship. Through to Councillor Tate. This is a very small boundary adjustment. It comprises about 103 acres. There is one parcel that is, I believe, currently agricultural and is farmed. However, it's owned by an industrial interest, and it was purchased for the purposes of industrial development. This boundary adjustment is primarily for the purposes of realigning Pattullo Avenue, and the lands that are remaining from that would be converted to employment land uses and developed as such.
Thank you. I was going to bring that up, but thank you for the question. Thank you. Anyone else? Counselor Schadenberg.
Yeah, just maybe as a comment, I know when you're driving over Norwich Ave and you got to go onto the 401, you're turning southbound or left very quickly, and then literally within 100 meters, if you're going to Pattullo, you're going a left again to go to the Pattullo Ave turn. And if you're driving a transport truck, there certainly are situations at different times of day where they are lining up. So who's going on the 401, who's going on Pattullo, to be able to move the entrance to Pattullo further south is really a necessity. And it wasn't a necessity brought on by the Economic Development Office of Woodstock. To a degree it was, because the province of Ontario has sort of said more employment jobs down Pattullo means you have to move the entrance to Pattullo subdivision or the Pattullo industrial area further south to be able to even permit any development further east down Pattullo.
Yes, and I'll just add to that. It was the MTO prompting of any future developments would require the changing of the roadway because of the queuing, the traffic issues because of that short distance there. So, and I'd like to say thank you to Norwich Council for working so well together to look at that and recognizing what needs to happen in that intersection. Anyone else before I call the vote? All those in favor? Against? That is carried. Then our addition 14G2, temporary discount rate for advertising and what's on Woodstock. Looking for motion? Councillor Wismer Van Meer.
I move that Woodstock City Council approves a temporary discount of 15% to advertising rates for the What's on Woodstock magazine for the duration of the Canada Post strike.
Thank you. Seconded by Councillor Schattenberg. Discussion or questions? Councillor Wismer Van Meer.
Just a general comment. I was actually happy to see this come forward because it was something that had crossed my mind. With the advertisement that happens in What's on Woodstock, and I know a lot of people appreciate receiving this, the magazine, and it gets utilized for a lot of great content and for local businesses and such to advertise in. But I did have a concern of how that was going to look because of the fact that, well, prior to that, flyers were not being distributed within postal service, but now with the strike, obviously that really throws a curve in it. So I was happy to see staff bring this forward, and that's why I support it, because I think it's just a generous thing to do for those folks that do utilize advertising in there.
Yes, I agree. Anyone else? Councillor Martin.
Just a question. The way I read this report, it is a 15% discount moving forward. Did we consider a 15% credit for those who are impacted by the existing What's on Woodstock magazine that wasn't able to have full distribution in the mail? Simply because it's the people that are in the current issue that we know are being affected. We don't know if a future issue will be affected because the strike could be ratified or, yeah.
Through the mayor to the councilor's question, certainly it's something that was considered from an administration process. We figured going forward that would be an option. This was kind of a last minute. We already had the magazines in hand when the decision by the Canadian Union of Postal Workers came forward. So certainly I think we could accommodate that if that was council's wish.
Then as a follow-up, have we considered a digital version of What's on Woodstock? The Woodstock, Ingersoll Woodstock Echo has a digital version that you can online flip through the pages of the magazine. Is that something that we've looked at evolving to mitigate being at the mercy of Canada Post?
Again, through the mayor to the councilor's question, yes, certainly the magazine is available as a PDF on the website. So there is a digital version that's already available. Those flip book solutions do have some accessibility barriers. So when we put the PDF, we can add the remediation to ensure that it's compatible with screen readers. So they're not losing an experience other than the flipping of the pages through that. So certainly for all the advertisers, as well as those who are looking for the content in What's on Woodstock, it is available through the website. We also have distributed copies of the magazine to all of the city facilities, as well as some private businesses for people to pick up for the duration of the work stoppage.
Thank you. Anyone else? Seeing none, call the vote. All those in favor? None opposed, that is carried. And I would encourage you, if this strike does go on, of course, to make sure you get out to our municipal buildings, pick up your copies. They are great to have handy at the house. I know we keep ours handy at all times because of the events and everything else that's going on around the city. So, Councillor Lauder.
Thank you. I just want to let you know that I've taken a bundle out to Sally Creek, the rec hall. So if there's anyone in that area then they can go in there and pick it up.
Excellent. Okay, thank you. Moving along, nothing from Human Resources, Fire Services, but we do have Public Works today. So 14J.1, Solid Waste Services, follow-up on curbside collection changes. Speaking of what to keep an eye on what's on Woodstock for information, Councillor Leatherborough.
Moved by myself that Woodstock City Council receive the report regarding solid waste services follow-up on curbside collection changes as information.
Thank you. Second by Councillor Martin. Discussion or questions? Councillor Lauder?
I just have one question through the mayor to Mr. Molyneux. I've been asked by several different people if they buy their $2 tag now, if that will apply in January or when this becomes effective. Will they have to add another $1, or can they use this and until they run out? And but some of them think that they can buy for the next year and maybe they can use it for the whole year. So if there's any answer that he might be able to give for the citizens and me.
Through you, Mayor, to the councillor's question. So this is a county program, and I would not like to misspeak in terms of what their intentions are. So I think, first of all, we should get clarification from the county. It is our understanding from previous discussions that you can still purchase up until the end of this year. But in terms of how that looks and if there's a phase-in period or not, I think we should get clarification that we can provide to this council.
Yeah, and I'll just add to that, that is a discussion we've had at county council as well that has not been fully answered either, so I'll confirm that. Did I see a hand up? Sorry. Councillor Leatherborough?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Mr. Molyneux. I didn't know if you wanted to give a high-level overview, but specifically, I find residents get confused with the pending changes to the Blue Bin program. So if you could really emphasize that in your report of what we're expecting. I understand there's still some question marks, but that's something that I get more questions about instead of organics coming to the city. Everybody's excited about that, but the Blue Bin program changes.
Through you, Mayor, to the councillor. From a high level, we no longer will be the service provider for collection of recycling. That will change in the new year. How that change looks, if you recall from the last report on this topic, we had been asked to return back to circular materials to speak to them about the collection schedule and if there were some opportunities for changes there. So number one, the big change is we are no longer the service provider in terms of collection. Number two, for recycling, we have had confirmation that it will be a single stream collection. So that will be a change from what we have today. We are still in conversation with CMO and MTerra, who is the service provider, just in terms of whether the schedule will change. So as of today, it is a bi-weekly collection, which will match what we have today. However, that is something we're still in conversation with the service provider.
Yeah. I will ask for single stream clarification. We're talking about right now, we have a dual stream, in my opinion, where we separate papers and plastics, let's say it. It'll all be in one. Is that correct?
Through Mayor, to the Mayor, that is correct.
Yeah. Thank you. So now everything goes in one bin. Doesn't matter. We don't have to separate it. I'm not sure who was first. Councillor Schattenberg?
I just wanted to state the importance of maybe getting that Wasteline app, because if your best friend that lives 2 blocks away from you always did the same garbage day as you, that's not necessarily the case anymore, because the new map has 6 zones for the city of Woodstock, not just 5. So for the rotating 6-day pickup for garbage and organics beginning in January, not quite yet, beginning in January, which I think is January 5th is a Monday.
Thank you. Councillor Wismer Van Meer?
Through the mayor to Mr. Molyneux, I'm just sorry, we're going to throw one more at you. I have a lot of people asking me about the Enviro Depot. I know it is touched on in the report, but do you mind just kind of outlining what could potentially, or what the plans are right now for recycling that is available at the Enviro Depot?
Through you, Mayor. So at this time, we're not planning for any changes yet with the Enviro Depot. So essentially we're looking for an answer from MTerra in terms of the collection cycle. If that would change, we may come back to council with a report as to what we think is a good business plan for the Enviro Depot. As it stands today, though, I don't think we have a good answer for you there yet without having that collection cycle known. And so we're not going to go down the road of any potential changes just yet until we know that. I will advise that when we do know more, we will come back again with a report. So you should anticipate more reporting on this topic as we get through to the end of the year.
Yes, thank you. Councillor Martin.
Thank you, Mayor Accioni. Woodstock is going to be collecting organics and black bag garbage. Are we going to be, are Woodstock trucks going to be able to go directly to the Drumbo site, or will they have to be taken to Salford, dumped and reloaded and then out to Drumbo for treatment? Or is that still in the works?
Through you, Mayor. So we're still in the works on specifics, but again, certainly we can report back on these things at a later date.
Right, because taking out to Salford, dumping, reloading, and backtracking exactly the route that we've taken doesn't make a lot of sense to me. I'm hopeful that we can find an arrangement that we can go direct to Drumbo from Woodstock.
Thank you. Councillor Leatherborough.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, these are just some of my comments as well that in the report, it highlights that there will be more information being delivered door to door, which I think is an exceptional level of service. I also think that as we learn more and we adjust to this new schedule, it's going to be really challenging for residents, but also City of Woodstock staff. Often people will comment that there's illegal dumping only in the downtown, and in fact, it's throughout our trail system too. So I do hope that everyone, takes the time, the patience to learn about this program and do their due diligence, but also to be patient with their neighbors as well as City of Woodstock staff. So I'll be looking forward to my delivery to my door. And I just wanted to make those comments.
Thank you. Anyone else? Well, I've certainly shared my concerns with the changes. I think we're in for a bit of a shock and not exactly sure, as our director has clearly stated, everything hasn't been figured out yet. I thank staff for going through, but I also want to thank county staff, because of course this is controlled really at the county level, and then we get to put it out as a city. We collect it on their behalf. But recognizing some major changes are coming, I'm just asking you to please pay attention what's on Woodstock and all the other literature we're going to be sending out to you, and what's on, or the online app that the county has, the Wasteline app, will be a big saver, and hoping for the best when we move forward come January. Anyone else? We'll call a vote. All those in favor? That is carried. Again, today we just took it as information, to be clear. Next up, from 14J2, Parks Department Replacement Tractor, Councillor Schattenberg.
Yes, the Woodstock City Council approved the sole source purchase of a Kubota tractor, 39 horsepower, four-wheel drive for project EQ 00033 Parks and replace tractors at a cost of $53,449.16, excluding taxes, funded from the Equipment Reserve Fund.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder on that? Councillor Lauder. Discussion or questions? Seeing none, we'll call the vote. All those in favor? That is carried. And nothing from IT today. There is nothing from Special Committee and Advisory Task Force. No notice of motions, but we do have new business. Councillor Schattenberg.
Yeah, this was a previous notice of motion, so today it's actually a motion. Moved by Councillor Schattenberg, whereas in April of 2025, Council received a presentation by MHBC and JPM Architecture, Inc., and outlining a conceptual plan for the Woodstock Civic Square and City Hall expansion. And whereas the estimated cost for the conceptual plan for the City Hall expansion is 23.7 million, and whereas the plan for planning purposes, the proposed civic square is currently identified in the capital budget forecast for 2027 and the city hall expansion for 2028, with both projects to be considered as part of the annual budget process. Now therefore be resolved that Woodstock City Council directs staff to prepare a report outlining potential options to reduce the scope and associated costs of the proposed city hall expansion project, and further that this report should include but not be limited to the feasibility of repurposing the existing council chambers for office use and relocating Woodstock City Council meetings to the Oxford County Council chambers.
Thank you. Is there a seconder on that? Councillor Lauder? Discussion? Councillor Schattenberg, would you like to speak to your motion?
Yes, I will, because some of this comes down to dollars and cents, but also at the end of this, I will have a question for our CIO, David Curry. The report back in April was nice hypothetical because of the fact that you can't go forward with any kind of a feasibility study, whether it be for hockey arenas or swimming pools or for an expansion of Woodstock Civic Square. But the one thing I guess I wanted to clarify from the motion, I believe the addition to City Hall was 17.8 million that was suggested in April by JPM, the architects, and they had drawings that would create a city hall that would have more of a glass structure that would not coincide with this city hall. But notwithstanding that, we are not approving any kind of an addition today whatsoever. It doesn't matter if it's a 1,000 square foot addition or they projected a possible 24,000 square foot addition. The one thing that was in there though was a 2,300 square foot with 84 seats council chambers. So that would be a different council chambers than what we're in right now, completely rebuilt and maybe even resituated on our property, attached obviously to this building. And to have human resources and even economic development move back into City Hall. So that's where I sort of get to my question on with our CIO David Curry to ask him, because human resources and economic development are currently in the Market Square across Market Street, sort of behind the Market Theater itself. So maybe just give Mr. Curry an opportunity to answer the question to sort of say what the purpose of the MHBC/JPM report was in April that they were asked to write for the city of Woodstock. And it was a thorough report for sure, compared to what could possibly be what happens in 2028 or 2029 or whenever an addition to City Hall does happen.
Your worship, through to Councillor Schattenberg, the 17 million, I think I just looked at the document. The 17 million relates just to the addition portion of what was being proposed. There was another 5 million of renovations to the existing building. So it brought the total under that concept to just shy of 24 million. So that concept was absolutely to build a brand new council chambers, larger council chambers. It was to repatriate our economic development department and our human resources department all under one roof again. It was to provide additional space within the building to accommodate growth, the city growing, the staff to support the city growing. So it was a very forward-looking concept, but it doesn't necessarily have to be the approach that we take. If council's wish is one of the options is to take another look at this project from the lens of perhaps leaving the economic development and the human resources department in the market as an annex to City Hall for the longer term. The size of this expansion of the City Hall expansion is considerably reduced. If council wishes to use the county council chambers, sure, we can take advantage of this space that we're in today. If council wishes to keep their own council chambers, I think that can be accommodated too in a much more modest expansion of City Hall. So we have some thoughts, we have some ideas about how this can be done for much smaller amount of money, providing growth, not bringing all of the staff back in. But I think this building has served its purpose for quite a number of years. But we're bumping into some functional issues with the building, and I think regardless of whether we do anything in the terms of an expansion, City Hall will still need to have some changes to it to support customer service in a different way than what we do today. This council chamber has proven to be too small on a number of occasions. Not often, but from time to time, we don't have the lobby crush space. I think we can reuse this chamber, but I think we need to rethink how the public accesses it and how the public accesses the services within this building, because there are security issues, there are concerns that just the way the building is designed and the way it functions, it's difficult to manage. So I think something will have to happen with this building. At the same time, I think it's just forward looking to take a look at how we can accommodate growth at the same time. And I think we can come to you with some ideas that comes in with the far lower number.
Thank you. Continue.
Yeah, just as a very, very quick follow-up, just more as a statement, as we start getting in the capital budget season and we start moving forward, and I know these are just placeholders, 2028, 2029, or might even be a vision for 2030, but we start looking at other facilities, whether there be a roof on a community complex or a roof on sports plexes or a new fire hall or new arenas for the city of Woodstock to go from 3 arenas to 4 arenas. Everything costs money, and I think this is one area we look at it. And the first and foremost, when I brought it up, was to sort of look at the idea that if anything, the county council chambers, and I dare say this, but I'm going to say this, is a very large, nice county council chamber that for us to be able to take a computer and a few files across the street is not difficult. We're not traveling 7, 8, 9, 10 blocks to get to a different building. We're literally going across the street. I think it's an ideal thing to take a look at, but everything in the motion, the way it's written, is something that I'm hoping I can get some approval on, especially the change of the scope possibly of City Hall as well.
Thank you. Anyone else? Councillor Lauder.
I will support the resolution which Councillor Schadenberg has provided. I look forward to a report from staff for possible revisions to the most recent concept that was presented to council regarding the expansion of the City Hall and the pros and cons of holding our council meeting in the county chambers, or if it is at all feasible. So I do look forward, and hopefully that any additions or changes that costs can come down considerably, because as the councillor has said, that we have to look at every dollar. And so I look forward to that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Tate.
Through the chair, I want to thank Councillor Schadenberg for bringing this forward. I think this is imperative that we, as representatives of the taxpayer, we're fiscally responsible. And that, as I said before, when a consultant brings a report, it's just a report. It's our job to take a look at it and pick out things from it that we want, may not want, but we don't do the whole thing because it's a giant wish list. When I first got on county council, Peter Crockett, I don't know what year it was, but came in as a CEO and met with all the councilors and said, you know, what can we do to make it less expensive across the entire county? What can we share? Well, nothing ever came of that. And all these years later, we're not sharing anything. So it'd be great to have even just a discussion with county if we can perhaps share that council chamber, because it is large. If there's anything else that we can share in partnership, because we're right across the street. and then a pared down, look at this, because we have spent millions across the street. And I would hate to see we've spent all that money and then bring them all in here when it's not necessary, because once again, it is right across the street. So I look forward to that report. And once again, thank Councillor Schattenberg for bringing this forward, because I think it's extremely important. And as mentioned a number of times, when you look at the asset management report, we have a lot of existing buildings that are going to need upkeep on, that we need to think of first before all this shiny new stuff.
Thank you. Councillor Martin?
Thank you, Mayor Accioni. I fully support the motion. I think asking for a report on what are our options is prudent. For me, a $24 million spend on this building and in this site doesn't make sense to me. And I feel like there's certainly a lot of other options. Councillor Schattenberg, you mentioned that it's just going across the street with some computers and some files. Isora Tavistock used that council chamber for, I think, 2 or 3 years while they outgrew their space in Hickson and before their newest site could be built. So they did go a number of blocks, miles to get from Hickson to OCAB to conduct their meetings. I would suggest in a report, I'd even be open to what other future locations would be suitable for a council chambers. If we're going to build a facility at Cowan Fields, what would it take to build a flex space that could accommodate council? Maybe that's ridiculous, maybe it's feasible, but until we explore some of these things, the 4th floor of the art gallery is being renovated. Is that a space that could be, I'm sure it's already designated for its own use, but I think we have to get thinking out of the box. Just because council chambers has been in this building for the number of years that it has been, doesn't mean that this is the only place. Council chambers used to be in the museum. At one point, there was a change and we came over here. So I would look forward to a fulsome report on options for us to consider that don't have this $23 million price tag on them.
Councillor Wismer Van Meer?
Just a comment that when we did receive this report originally back a few months ago, kind of showing the concepts, one of the first things I brought up was the fact that I wasn't keen on seeing these facilities these offices we just moved across the street coming back this way. You know, that didn't sit well with me at all because of what's already been mentioned, the cost that we put into it. And it looks fantastic. It serves its purpose where it is, the folks that are there. Maybe there's different departments that should be in there versus who is in there. But I think utilizing that space, continuing to utilize that space is great. And you know, getting a report back is never a bad thing. It's always food for thought for us. And I think that it's what council should be looking at doing and asking questions and seeing what's potentially viable is important, and especially when it comes to dollars and cents. So I support this, and I also agree with what's been said that, you know, we've put a lot of money into other aspects, so I don't want to backpedal on that.
Thank you. Councillor Leatherborough?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I don't know if this question is for Councillor Schattenberg or staff, but was there an estimated time when this report would come back to council? Like before, during capital budget?
Your worship, through to Councillor Leatherborough, I think it's going to take a bit of time for us to get our head around the variety of the options. Practically speaking, there are some interconnections between the City Hall expansion and the Museum Square renovation. What happens at City Hall is somewhat linked to what we are doing in Museum Square. If you want artificial ice in Museum Square, we have to do things at City Hall to support the ice resurfacer and the chiller unit. That's so there's things between them. I think we'll probably be coming to council with a report that ultimately makes some recommendations, but it's going to need approval of funds to do some more conceptual work to put a schematic design together, and that probably should follow in sync with the Museum Square work. So it is likely a 2026 capital project. Ultimately is just thinking off the top of my head how this might go forward.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So just to be clear, so a year from now. So next term of council. Understood. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else? I'll certainly add that ever since the conceptual drawings come out and the dollar amount has come out, I've really had my doubts on council supporting a $24 million addition here. We've talked with staff many times of different ideas and different things we can do. So Councillor Schoenberg bringing this forward is perfect timing, recognizing that it is future thinking. It is a decision that's going to be made in the future. So it doesn't matter if it's a $1 placeholder or a $24 million placeholder at this point anyways, we're not making that decision of what is going to be spent in the future. But based on the CIO's comments, the biggest thing I want council to kind of keep in the back of their heads though, is what is Museum Square possibly going to look like in your heads? And then remember, City Hall will support some of that, if not all of that. So we just got to keep that in mind. But again, we're talking future. So anybody watching this at home, absolutely no decisions are going to be made on this anytime soon. But I do look forward to looking at something a little less grand than I think what the concept came in at, and see what we can do in a much more logical way with staffing, because as somebody here day to day, things do need to improve from residents' perspective, but also staff perspectives. With that, anyone else before I call the vote? All those in favor? None opposed? That is carried. And that brings us to draft bylaws. Councillor Leatherborough.
A mess, excuse me. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Lauder, that the following bylaws be given a first and second reading. 9778-25, a bylaw to authorize the mayor and clerk to enter into an agreement between the Corporation of the City of Woodstock, the Corporation of the Township of Norwich, and the County of Oxford with respect to the arrangements pertaining to the restructuring of boundaries. 9779-25, a bylaw to repeal and replace bylaw 9748-25, a bylaw which provided for the classification, retention, and destruction of records of the Corporation of the City of Woodstock. 9780-25, a bylaw to amend City of Woodstock Municipal Code Chapter 504, parking payments in lieu of.
Thank you. Any questions on those? Seeing none, all those in favor? None opposed, that's carried. Councillor Leatherborough.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Lauder, that the following bylaws be given a third and final reading. 9778-25, 9779-25, 9780-25.
Thank you. Last chance. Any questions or concerns? All those in favor? Those are carried. None opposed. And that brings us to questions and addresses by council. And let's start with Councillor Tate today.
I think today is officially Chief Rod Wilkinson's last day in the office. So I would like to wish him and his family the best in his future. Rod is an incredible person. He's very down to earth, very, very calm, mild mannered, which you need in that position. Before my dad retired, I think he was one of his last police officers that he hired. And I was on the police board, as it turns out, when we hired him as chief. So he is a great guy. Being the chief anymore of any force is very difficult now. As we all know, Policing has changed so much. So it's difficult in that job, a lot of stress. I know my dad retired, I think when he was 49, and he said, policing is a young man's job. Time for me to get out, let the other ones in. And now Rod's older than that, but it is a difficult job. So I wish him the best and the best for the chief coming in, and glad to see the turnout for the chief the other night, and we will miss him.
Yes, well said. Counselor Lauder.
Thank you. Just a reminder, recently there have been new all-way stop signs installed in 4 intersections. Please observe the signs and drive accordingly. And for the pedestrians, also be vigilant, watching the traffic in case that drivers have not familiarized themselves with the changes. There has been different things on Facebook about these, and so it's just everyone just be careful. And looking forward to seeing everyone in Museum Square for the fun-filled fall day of celebrations this weekend. And you can register your children for the open PA Day, October 10th, 10th, the camps at Cowan Park Sports Camp, Art Gallery, Museum, and Home Alone Safety Course. And on Monday night, I attended the goodbye party for the police chief, Rod Wilkinson, and he's going to be greatly missed. And Monday, our board will be welcoming Deputy Chief Nick Novacek to the position of our next police chief. And thank you.
Yes, well said. Thank you. Counselor Leatherborough.
I was going to mention Fall Fest, but Councillor Lauder did, so enjoy the rest of your afternoon.
Thank you. Counselor Sandberg.
Just a reminder that this past Sunday was the Woodstock Sports Wall of Fame ceremony at Golf Hall, was a golf gym. It was a great event with Kyla Rodriguez, Janet Thompson, Kevin Bruder, Bill Arthurs, Duff McMillan, Bun Brewster, and Jim Stevens. As far as individuals go, all inducted, including the 1963 Ontario Silver Tanker. That's a team of 8 curlers. Dr. Gord Brown from that team is the sole survivor, and he's, of course, a retired dentist in the city of Woodstock. Back on Tuesday, so that would be September 30th. Of course, it was Truth and Reconciliation Day. I was out at the Piddock Conservation Area on the North Shore for the sunrise ceremony. Ingersoll Mayor Brian Petrie was there. The warden Marcus Ryan was there. Our museum curator Karen Houston, who's still here this afternoon from City Council meeting here this afternoon. But listen to the words of Mary Lou Smoke or something else to be able to sort of think that, to be able to, it's more than just education when you hear about the traditions, and especially of Southwestern Ontario, when you look at versus Oneida and Muncie, Delaware area versus even Oswego and Six Nations, and some of the words that they had that came out through the sunrise ceremony on Tuesday morning. The other thing I want to mention is one event coming up, and that's on Saturday, October 4th, home opener for the Woodstock Lakers. That's a men's hockey team. They're in the Northern Premier Hockey League, so that's senior hockey, which means 21 and older, as opposed to junior hockey. They play the Alvinston Killer Bees on Saturday, and at Reeves Community Complex. They're in what's called the Metropolitan Division, and other centers include Strathroy, Orangeville, and Stratford. It should be a good competitive league.
Thank you. Counselor Martin.
Thank you, Mayor Accioni. I was over to Ontario yesterday to get my bubble tea with my teenager. We're big fans, and noticed they had a poster up that Tuesday, October 28th and Friday, November 7th, they're having a Boba and Rolls Fiesta. So this is a ticketed event. You can learn to roll authentic spring rolls, which Mayor Accioni, you and I had a session of learning how to do that. Sip on delicious bubble teas, sample some iconic Filipino dishes, but there will be entertainment and karaoke. So that's over in the Springbank Plaza. It is ticketed, tickets are limited. So it's a great way to get out and support a local business. They do a lot in our community. They're at almost all of our community events with their bubble tea truck. So yeah, I'd encourage people to check that out. I know that I'll be there on one of those dates, as I love their food and absolutely love bubble tea.
Thank you for bringing that up. Counselor Wismer Van Meer.
The Youth Advisory Committee met last night and we discussed a few events that are coming up. So just so folks know, every Friday night, there is free drop-ins at Cowan Park for young people ages 13 to 17. I've been told that the Swiftie fans will want to be there tomorrow night because it's Taylor Swift night and I guess they're going to be playing the new album on repeat. So if you are in the ages of 13 to 17 and you like Taylor Swift, I highly suggest you head out there. They also have Halloween Haunt at Canada's Wonderland coming up on October 19th. Tickets are only $40 for that, and that's transportation and your admission. So you can head out to the Halloween Haunt. I have done that before, and it is quite the evening. I'll leave it at that. Thanksgiving's coming up, so I hope everyone has a wonderful Thanksgiving weekend. My parents are celebrating their 50th wedding anniversary that weekend as well, so it's going to be a busy one for us. And last but not least, go Jays, go.
Yes. I guess tonight I just want to say a bunch of thank yous. I'm going to start off with saying a big thank you to Chief Wilkinson. Almost 30 years of dedication to the city, all working with the Woodstock Police. I've had some great conversations. It was mentioned how just a good, down-to-earth man he was in that role. Was able to have some honest communications, some talks about different projects, and it really supported his vision with the police. And I'm really proud to say with our deputy chief, of course, taking on the chief role, a lot of that is going to continue on with cooperation of the Woodstock Police Board. That same kind of vision. So congratulations and thank you, Chief, for your dedication to the city of Woodstock. Next, I'd like to say thank you to Acting Mayor Wismer Van Meer. I was away and you stepped in at quite a few events. There was a few that came up even in the short time that I was away. And thank you for attending some grand openings, mostly Roses being one of them that kind of opened up. And thank you for stepping in and filling that role. And the other big thank you is to my wife. It was our wedding anniversary and she planned a trip to Ireland. And so we were away for a week. Got to explore by her plans going around. It was just nice to spend some time with her in a country that is absolutely beautiful. It was a little too rushed, but it was a great downtime. And I want to say happy anniversary, sweetheart. Thank you so much for putting up with me in our crazy life. I also want to mention our crossing guards again. I'm still getting a lot of comments of people not paying attention. Please slow down. Please stop at four-way stops, at any stop sign or red lights. It's not that hard. Come to a complete stop, take a look. If you've got to leave 10 minutes early because you're in a rush, please do. There is construction here in the city. There's always going to be construction over the next little while. So please plan on that and slow down, respect and watch for our kids crossing the streets. Nobody wants to see anything happen whatsoever. And again, congratulations to those at the Sports Wall of Fame. I know it was mentioned. I was not able to attend as I was out of the country, but congratulations to all those well-deserving members that were named to the Sports Wall of Fame. We will be leading the Fall Fest Dog Halloween Parade. Dexter's and Sarah and I are going to be leading that parade, so we'd love to see you come on out. You know, dress up your dog, and we're going to parade around Museum Square and City Hall, and this is going to be interesting. I've never been involved with something like this, but I'm really thankful for staff putting together what I think is going to be a really fun fall fest. This is the first of hopefully many, and get out and enjoy it. Music starts at noon. There's a learn to line dance, of course, a parade, learn the thriller dance. Now, I mentioned this to my wife, and she told me already that I'm not allowed to try and learn how to do it. So I'll probably do it just to make her mad. And of course, we'll end up the day with music. And with that, happy September, everybody, or October, everybody. Look for adjournment. Councillor Schadenberg. Second by Councillor Martin. All those in favor, we are adjourned. Have a great day, everybody.